Hello. So, very quickly, I wanted to hop on and do a little game preview for the Alabama and LSU matchup this Saturday at 3 p.m. in Coleman Coliseum. So, without any further ado, we're going to get right into that. So, kicking it off, the number one talking point is how does Alabama respond following two emotional wins, especially the last big road win at Arkansas? Does Alabama kind of sleepwalk into this LSU game and kind of look ahead to later in the schedule, or does Alabama show up and continue to handle business? With three freshmen starting, that is a question. That is a very legitimate and real question for this Alabama team. But I do feel that Alabama will show up in this one because Coleman Coliseum is sold out. There's going to be a packed house, and there's a lot of energy behind this program right now. So even if they come out of the gates a little bit sloppy, I do think that they pick it up and they bring the energy enough to get through this game no matter what. So that is one of those that I wanted to address because it is a legitimate concern, but I don't feel that Alabama needs to be super worried about that. But the first thing that I really want to address is in regards to LSU, they have entered the death zone. Their schedule has entered the most brutal stretch that you could imagine for them. So, up next, here I want to read this list off for you. They start with an away game at Alabama. They host Auburn. They go and host Tennessee. They go on the road to Bud Walton in Arkansas. And then they host Texas Tech, go to Missouri, host Alabama, go away to Mississippi State, and then host Texas A&M, then go on the road to Georgia, and then finally it gets easy and they play home with South Carolina. So looking at KenPom, the best chance to win that they have is a home game against Texas A&M, and that's at 51%. This is an absolute murderer's row of a schedule coming up for LSU, and this is why I said previously in another episode that LSU's got to get real comfortable with the idea of the NIT here and just be okay with it because Lord have mercy. Man, it does not get any easier for them for a while here in conference play. But for the game itself, I believe this is the perfect game for Alabama to continue and cut down on limiting turnovers on the offensive end of the floor. LSU overall is forced to 20% turnover rate, but that number has dropped to 15% in conference play. And that's just about what Alabama has done this season offensively. They averaged about 20% in the non-conference overall slate, and since conference play has begun, they've cut that percentage to 16%. If Alabama can live in that 16% range, they'll be very, very happy. It's not an elite status, but with the pace of play that Alabama uses and utilizes, that 16% turnover rate or lower is where they want to live. So this is a perfect game to continue in building upon that turnover success that they've had since entering conference play. The next thing is this is the perfect game for Alabama to get back to dominating on the glass. LSU has very middling rebounding percentage numbers. They're in the back half of the conference. They're in the back half of college basketball as a whole in Division One. If Alabama wants to get back to dominating the boards in the way that Nate Oates has said that he wants this team to get back there, this is the perfect opportunity to do it. This is the perfect opportunity for a lot of things for Alabama. I'm going to go ahead and spoil that. That's a lot of what this issue is. That's what a lot of what this preview is that this is the perfect opportunity for Alabama to continue establishing dominance and getting better at what they're getting better at. So the next thing that I think this is going to crack this game basically wide open is LSU's paint defense is putrid. It's bad. So on the year, they've allowed 52% two-point shooting. And in conference play, that has only gotten worse. They're allowing 56% two-point shooting. And a lot of that is come in the paint, people getting to the basket, because they have an awful block rate of 8.1 overall. But in conference play, it has gotten worse. They have a 5.1% block rate in SEC play. If Alabama can get to the rim it the way that LSU has allowed people to get to the rim on them all year, this one on paper should be a pretty dominant performance for the Tide offensively. just because of how much of this Nate Oates style of basketball is built on getting to the rim and rim running every possession. They want to get a paint touch, and they'll kick out to the 3 point line from that paint touch. There may not be much kicking to the 3 point line going on in this game. It may just be getting to the rim, getting fouled, or getting a bucket. And Alabama might not have to shoot many threes. The only threes that they'll shoot if LSU continues to play the way that they have played in the paint defensively all year are ones that they just feel like taking. But a really interesting point in this game will be how Alabama chooses to defend KJ Williams, the LSU center, who is a fantastic stretch five. This is the first true high caliber stretch five that Alabama has played this year. And it will be very interesting to see the defensive game plan that Alabama does draw up and whether that factors in Charles Bediako or if we see very reduced minutes for him because of the fact that KJ Williams, if I'm not mistaken, is 6'10". Yes, 6'10". So he's the exact same height as Noah Clowney. He's 250 pounds. So if he wanted to bang down low, Alabama would be giving up that size if they went smaller than Bediako. But if they want to really answer for him stretching the floor out and being able to really open up LSU's offense to go 5 out, especially with Adam Miller being another elite shooter on this team, it will be very interesting to see if Alabama utilizes a lot of some Noah Clowney at the 5 matchups. I'm not sure if that's me personally kind of projecting that is a wish that I have for this Alabama team because I think that we haven't seen it much, but a Noah Clowney at the 5, Brandon Miller at the 4, and going 3 guards in the backcourt with Quinterly or Griffin, and then you go Sears and Bradley. I think that team, that lineup doesn't give up a ton of size, but it can still space you out and really run the floor. And I want to see it. I really do want to see it a lot. But I think this game might be a real opportunity to get a look at that because KJ Williams is such a threat from the 3-point line and he spaces out the floor so that Alabama doesn't necessarily need to have Charles Bediako in the game defending the paint down low at all times against a low post big. But this will also be a good test to see how Charles Bediako has expanded his game defensively because he was an elite rim protector when he first stepped on campus at Alabama, but he did struggle getting out in space and guarding some of these bigs that stretch the floor a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see if he's made some strides in that aspect and if the coaching staff does trust him to kind of just handle KJ Williams. Doesn't matter where he's at on the floor, how far out he is. That will be, I think, the matchup to watch in this game is how Alabama guards KJ Williams defensively. Because I feel like everything else is overwhelmingly in the Tide's favor. Alabama's longer. Alabama's more athletic. Alabama's got better guys. Alabama plays a style of basketball that LSU just doesn't defend well. They don't like to move fast. They like to play a slower style of basketball. And their defense is awful at protecting the paint. So if you get Alabama in there, and Alabama wants to get in there a lot, I feel like this one can get out of hand. So I'll go pretty bold prediction here. I'm going to say that this is another 90 or 100 point game for the Tide. I really strongly feel that way. I just don't think that LSU has the answer for Alabama on defense. Ken Palm has this one projected to be an 81-65 game, but I just don't see LSU stopping the Alabama offensive attack. Granted, to get to that 90 to 100 range, Alabama's going to have to shoot really well from beyond the arc. Anyone does to get to that range, but if anyone's capable of doing it, it's Alabama. The first time they hit that 90 mark, 95 against Liberty in the second game of the year. Then they put up 104 on Jacksonville State. North Carolina, yes, 100 points was scored, but it was a 4 overtime game. Alabama went back to the 90-point range against Memphis, and then another 90-point performance in the loss against Gonzaga. I think this is another time that we see Alabama's offense really just get out and start pouring it on. So, if I had to put a prediction in on this one, exact scores, I'm going to stick by the 90-point thing. So, let me go Alabama 92, and just because of pace of play, LSU is going to get some points. Anytime that you put up 100, it's hard to limit the other team's scoring because you're moving so fast. But I'll go LSU 74. So about a 20-point ball game. I think it'll be a pretty decisive victory for the Tide just because of the fact that Alabama does well what LSU does not defend well. I think this is a matchup that just really works in the Tide's favor, and it should be a pretty fun environment in Coleman Coliseum on Saturday. I'm looking forward to this one. I think this will say a lot for the maturity of this team if they go out and answer the bell in what could be a trap game, or looking ahead to going on a road trip at Vanderbilt on Tuesday. So without wasting any more of your time, I'm going to go ahead and cut this one short. Thank you for joining me and listening to the little preview here. Hopefully we'll check back and I was right after the 3 o'clock game on Saturday.